Hello, welcome to yet another episode where we shall be looking at the grade 9 paper 1 mathematics, and it's mainly the revision. So in this paper, we have around about 10 topics that we shall explore and shall give some bit of detailed analysis what is expected. Okay, so question 1 is always a multiple choice, and we have usually 10 or less questions. We have options given to us and we must choose the most correct one. And we can only do that after doing some relevant calculations before we can draw the conclusion. Okay, so which of the following numbers is rational? So we know that a rational number is basically a number that can be expressed in the form of A over B. In other words, can be written as a fraction. Okay, so pi is irrational because when you expand pi and simplify it, you'll get 3,1415 and so on and so forth. There are a whole lot of numbers. We cannot get the square root of a -1, so this is also out. Then 1,23 with a dot on top, which means this number is a recurring fraction. Are we able to find the square root of 10? Yes, but the answer we're going to get will be not ending. Okay, so in other words, it cannot be expressed as a fraction. So the correct option will be option C. So number 1 is a C. Then 1.2, they want us to calculate, okay, 6 plus 6 divided by 2 minus 6 times that and that. So since we have more than one operation, we need to apply our BODMAS, whereby we take the priorities of each sign. So from the BODMAS, we know that brackets take first priority. Since we don't have any brackets, this is just a negative bracket. Yes, we can simplify this first. Okay. So this is going to be like 6 plus 6 divided by 2, negative and negative will give us a positive 12 if we multiply that. But division, multiplication still take first priority. Okay. So we can divide. But we have also multiplied. So that's going to be 6 plus 6 divided by 2, that's a 3. And then we plus a 12. Then we are just left with additions throughout. So you can just add that straight away. So 6 plus 3 is a 9. And then 9 plus 12, that gives us a 21. So option C is the correct answer there. So even if you punch this directly in the calculator, you should be able to get 21. Then 1.3. They want us to simplify. Okay, so now we have bases of 2a, b, and c raised to an exponent of 3. So this 3 is going to affect everything that is inside this bracket using the laws of exponents. If you have a to the exponent of c, and then we have exponent d. So this d affects that c. So in this case, all the exponents here will be 1, 1, 1. So we have 2 cubed. 2 cubed is 8. And then we shall have a cubed, b cubed, and then c cubed. But then we are multiplying it by this. So it's going to be the same story. But now, since we have a negative exponent, we can make it positive by just dividing it by something like this. 1 over 2bc squared. Okay, so when this becomes a denominator, the sign on the exponent becomes positive. So I'll say 1 over, I know that 2 squared is going to be a 4. That's going to be b squared and then c squared. Then I can do the simplification. Do I need to simplify? I mean, everything is just like this. Okay, so which option has 8a cubed, b cubed, c cubed? So we have this. We have this. We have option A and C. Okay, now let's look at the other terms. It's 1 over 4b squared, c squared, which is this option. So it is C again. All right. Then 1.4, they want us to get the next term in the sequence. So what I'm seeing is that this is 18. What is happening? If we subtract a 4, it becomes 14. And then if we subtract a 3, it becomes 11. We subtracted 2, becomes a 9. These are subtractions. And then if we subtract, we're going to subtract a 1. And that will give us 8. So option C again is the answer. All right. Then 1.5, how many terms are there in the expression? So we can distinguish between terms using addition and subtraction. These are the only operations that separate terms. Multiplication and division, these ones do combine terms together and they make it just one term. So this is a division. Then this is also a division. But the sign in between them is a multiplication. So we basically have one term, which is a B. Had this one been a plus or a minus, then we're going to have two terms. 1.6, simplify this. So we can simplify this by opening the brackets or expanding them. So x minus 3. And then that's going to be x minus 3. So we can open this using the FOIL. And that FOIL tells us that if we have x and x, that's going to give us x squared. Then x times that is going to be negative 3x. Then this negative 3 times x is negative 3x. The negative 3 times the negative 3, we get a positive 9. Simplify this because we have some like terms there. So x squared minus 6x plus a 9. We have something like this. I think it's option B. Okay, B becomes the answer. All right, then if x squared is a 25, then what is x? So for us to solve x, there are two ways. One, we can find the square root on either side. And whenever we find the square root, we should be able to get two answers, a positive and the negative answer. Alternatively, we can get x squared minus 25 is equal to 0. This is a difference of two squares, x minus 5 and then x plus 5 is equal to 0. Now, when we solve this, this first bracket gives us a positive 5. The second bracket gives us a negative 5. So our answer will be C. Then 1.8, they want us to complete the flow diagram. So we have the rule as negative 3x plus 2, but we're dealing with 8. So let's feed 8 into the operation and see. So negative 3 times 8 plus 2, which is a negative 24, plus 2, which gives us negative 22, which is option A. 1.9, consider the graph y is equal to mx plus c. So this is a straight line, but we know that this m represents the gradient, and then this c represents the y-intercept. So since we're dealing with just any two isolated points, we start by getting the gradient, which is change in y over change in x. Okay, so y2 minus y1 over x2 minus. So if this is my x1, y2, this is y1. This is x2, y2. So which means my gradient is going to be negative 2 minus 6 over my x2, which is negative 3 minus 1. And I simplify that, I have negative 8 over negative 4. So simplify that further, we're going to end up with just a 2. So this is our gradient. Okay, so just by looking at the options, I'm only considering A and D. I mean, I can even guess because my graph is cutting the y on the positive side of the y, not on the negative. But let's see. So we're going to have y is equal to mx plus c. So if I use this point 1 and 6, where there is y, I'll put a 6, where there is x, I'll put a 1. So that is 6. Our m is a 2, our x is a 1, plus c. Then we're going to transpose this to that side. It's going to be 6 minus 2 is equal to c. And then our c becomes a 4. So the equation becomes 2x plus 4, which is option D. So that is the correct option for 1.9. Then lastly, 1.9, consider this linear graph, 3 and negative 3. We have the table. So if negative 3 is 0, negative 2 is that, then what is 0? So 0 must be when x is a 0, y is a 3. Okay, so a becomes a 3. And then which number gives us a 4? It has to be a 1. Okay, because this pattern is increasing by just 1. So the correct option is going to be option D. All right, so this is more like a pattern. Okay, question number 2. Question number 2. Question number 2. They're telling us that 4 packets of biscuits are costing 74 rands. What is the cost of 6 packets? So if 4 packets are costing 74 rands, we know that 6 packets are going to cost more. So if we increase the number of packets, even the cost is going to increase. So this is a type of direct proportion. Okay, so I'm going to say this is the side of packets, and then this is the cost. So 4 packets will be 74 rands. Then what about 6 packets? How much will it cost? So I'll get the side that has both values, so which is 6 over 4, and then I'll multiply it by the cost, which is 74. Okay, so it will be up to me if I want to punch this into the calculator, but for the sake of saving time, you have to use your calculator. You punch it in, and then we see what you end up with. Okay, so I know that by 2 is 2, by 2 is a 3, by 2 is a 1, by 2 is a 37. So then I'm left with 37 times 3, which gives me a 1. It's a triple 1. Eh? That's what I'm getting. So triple 1. Then 2.2. 2.2. They want us to find the LCM and HCF of 60 and then 80. 60 and then 80. Okay, so we have 2 approaches to this question, and I'll just share with you at least both of them if possible. Okay, so the first option is the ladder method. So we have a 60 and then we have 80. So with this, I can break down everything and then just simplify it once. So I need prime numbers that will divide both numbers. Let me break down everything till I get to 1. Okay. So by 2, I'll have a 13, I'll have a 14. By 2, I'll end up with a 15 and then a 20. I have a 3. It's a 5. 3 cannot divide 20, so I'll keep it as a 20. Then I can still use 2. I'll have a 5 because 2 cannot go into 5. I'll have a 10. And then 2, I'll have a 5. And then I'll have a 5. And then by 5, I have a 1. Then I have a 1. Okay. Now, since everything is 1 and 1, then I can find my LCM by multiplying these numbers here. So how many 2's do I have? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 to the exponent of 4 times there's just 1 3. And then there's just 1 5. Okay, so when I punch that into my calculator, 2 to the 4, we're saying times 3 times 5. That gives me a 240. That is my LCM. Okay, or you can just go on say multiples of 60, 60, 120, 180, and so on and so forth, and then you still get the same answer. Then if I'm to get the HCF, the highest common factor, I can look for numbers that divided both 60 and 80. So the first one was a 2. Same applies to this two also. It broke down both numbers. And then I'm seeing this 5. It broke down the two numbers to give me 1 and 1. The other numbers are just dividing one number, one number. Okay. So then my HCF will be 2 times 2 and then times 5, which becomes a 20. So that is one approach, which is the ladder method. The other method is what we call the prime factorization. Okay. Like if I look at 60, how do I write 60 in terms of prime factors? Okay, just press 60 equal sign, and then you press shift, and then the factorial button. Okay, this gives me 2 squared times 3 times 5. And then when I look at 80, if I want to prime factorize 80, that's going to give me 2 to the exponent of 4 multiplied by 5. Now, if I'm looking for the HCF, let me start with HCF, the highest common factor. I just look for numbers that are common to both. So there is a base of 2, there's also a base of 2. So with this, I'll take the smallest of them, which is 2 squared. I have a 5, I have a 5. Both of them are exponents 1. So I will just take just 1. And then that's all. Multiply that, I get my 20. When I'm finding the LCM using this approach, where I have common bases, I'll take the biggest exponent, which is 2 to the 4. Then multiply by 3 is not common to both, so multiply with it. 5 is common to both, I'll take the one with the biggest, which is still 5. So that will give me 16 times 15, which should also give me a 240. Is that true? Yes, it's a 240. Okay, that's method 2. And then the other method is where you look at the multiples independently and then the factors separately. So that is question 2.2. 2.3, they're telling us that this person invested a certain amount of money into a savings account at 6.5% compound interest per annum. If the final amount is 15,000 after 5 years, how much did she invest originally? So we know that the compound interest formula is A is equal to P into 1 plus I to the exponent of N. So I'm just going to use that in this blank page. P1 plus I to the exponent of N. But the question gave us our A, the accumulated value, as 15,000. They gave us the period as 5 years. They gave us the I as 6.5%. So what we need to do is just substitute and find the p-value. So 15,000 is equal to P into 1 plus 6.5 over 100, but to the exponent of 5. Okay. Then for me to get P, I will divide both sides by this bracket. I divide both sides by that bracket. Okay, so this bracket cancels that, which means P will give me this overall result. So when I punch this dearest sum into our calculator, so 15,000 into 1 plus, we said 6.5% to the exponent of 5. Okay, that gives me 10,948.21. So this is how much she invested for those number of years. 2.4. Simplify without using a calculator. So this falls under the integers. Okay. With integers, what we need to pay attention to will be the body mass, how the signs operate, and the plus and the minus, how they relate. Okay. So let's start with the bigger bracket. In the bigger bracket, we have 4 times. Okay. This is 20 plus minus. A positive and negative will give us a negative. So it will be 20 minus 5. Okay, we know that 20 minus 5 is a 15. So 4 times 15, this should give us a 60. That's the answer of 2.4.1. 2.4.2, we still do the same thing, board mass. Since we have division, we have multiplication, we can do whichever one first. So 10 times negative 4 will give us a negative 40. Okay, I'm adding 25 divided by negative. That's going to give me negative 5. Then I have a negative 40 plus a negative 5. My answer becomes negative 45. Then 2.4.3. 2.4.3. We just need to expand this. We have 2 to the 5 minus that. So if it is 2 to the 5 minus negative 2 cubed, is that the sum? Minus negative 2 cubed. Okay, so from our laws of exponents, we know that 2 to the 5 will give us a 32 because that is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is 32. We are subtracting. That's going to be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. A negative and negative gives us a positive, positive and negative will give us negative 8. We simplify this, which is 32 minus minus will give us a plus. Ne? So our answer should be a 40 or 0. Then 2.4.4 for 3 marks. Square roots and cube roots. Okay, let's break this down. The cube root of negative 125 from your calculator gives us negative 5. Times, this is square root of 64, which is 8, over square root of 100 is 10, times the square root, the cube root of negative 64 is negative 4. When I simplify what is on top, I get a negative 40 over negative 40. The answer I get is just a 1. Okay, then 2.5, which is the exponents. Laws of exponents. We know that when the bases are the same and we are multiplying, we shall add the exponents. So that's gonna be 3 to the exponent of 2 plus 5, which is 3 to the 7. You can simplify this if you want, but I would prefer to leave my answer just like that. If you simplify, you should have 2187. Then 2.5.2, we know that 5 squared is a 25 times any number to the exponent of 0 is always a 1 minus, when I divide 3 by 6, that's going to give me something like a half or 0.5. And then I'm adding, this one is going to give me negative 8. Then we have 25 times 1, that's going to give me 25. I have to subtract 8, and then I have to subtract a half. Okay, order of operations, divisions, brackets, they will take first priority. So we know that 25 minus 8, that gives us a 17. But then the 17, if we subtract a half, we get 16.5, or we get 33 over 2. Whichever way you want to express it, but shall give you marks for simplifying at least this. Hope that together with that. Remember, it's just a 2-mark question. Okay, question number 3. We have number patterns. So given the following, we have 2, 5, 10, 17. Okay, let me jot it here. This is question 3. It's a 2, 5, 10, 17. 2, 5, 10, 17. Write down the next 2 numbers. Then provide a rule to describe the relationship between the pattern. Okay. So what we can say is when you look at the first number, it's a 2. Then from a 2, we must add a 3 to give us that. And then from a 5, we must add a 5 to give us that. And then we must add a 7 to give us that. So which means we are adding, should I call them odd numbers, starting with 3, whereby this is also going to give us a 2, which is constant. So if we have a pattern like this, which means it's a quadratic pattern, okay, the question wants the next 2 terms. Let's not talk too much. So that's going to be plus 9. So 17 plus 9, which is a 26. And then plus 11, which gives us a 37. Then 3.1.2, we need the rule. 3.1.2. So the Tn is going to be n squared. Okay. So if we get the first number, we square it, and then we plus a 1. So after plussing a 1, let's try to check our pattern and see if it's going to give us that. So that's going to be 1 squared is a 1 plus 1 is a 2. 2 squared is a 4 plus 1 is a 5. 3 squared is a 9 plus 1 is a 10. So this is the rule that we're having. It's a square pattern. 3.2, they're telling us that this person creates a pattern with sticks as illustrated. Pattern number 1, pattern 2, 3, and so on and so forth. They want us to draw pattern number 4. Okay, so if I'm to draw pattern number 4, which means I'm going to have four items here that I'm looking at. Then that and that. Oh Lord, my drawing is something else. Okay. So something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. So that is pattern number 4. Then the table below describes the relationship between the pattern number as well as the number of sticks to construct the pattern. So pattern number 1 is having 8 sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Correct. Pattern 2 is having 15 and then 22. So what we can see is that the patterns are adding by 7. So for me to get here, I must add a 7, which means this is going to be a 29. Okay. Then they want me to get the value of P if I'm looking at pattern number 10. So if I'm to look at the Tn or the rule, I'll get 7n, which is constant, and then 8 minus 7 is going to be 1. Okay, so this is my rule. Then if n is a 10, it's going to be 7 times 10 plus 1, which means my B is a 71. 3.3, we have a flow diagram, and they want us to find the values of A, B, C, and D. So let's feed the numbers. So what is 3 times 1 plus 5? A becomes 8. Say 3 times 1 plus 5 is 8. Then we have 3 times 3 plus 5, which is going to be a 14, because 9 plus 5, that's going to be a 14. And then C, we're using inverse operation. Okay, so 3x plus 5 is equal to negative 1. Let's move the 5 that side, which is going to be a negative 6, then divide by 3, which means C is negative 2. Okay, so 3x is this, divide by 3, divide by 3. X becomes negative 2. Same applies with D, which is a negative 4. So 3x plus 5 is negative 4. When I move that side, 3x becomes negative 9. Divide both sides by 3. That's a negative 3. So which means A is 8, B is 14, C is negative 2, D is negative 3. So that is question 3.3 and question 3 as well. Question number 4. Question number 4, we need to open up brackets here, simplify the following expressions. So these two must affect everything that is inside the brackets. So 2 by x will give us 2x, and then 2 by y will give us a 2y. That should be our answer. We cannot add this together because they are not like terms. Okay, then if we have x plus 2 and then x plus 2, let me put this side. Okay, so we're saying x plus 2 and then x plus 2. So this x multiplies with that, we have x squared. X multiplies by 2, we have 2x. 2 multiplies by x, which is also 2x. And then 2 multiplies by 2, which is a 4. The only like terms we have are those. So it's x squared plus 4x plus a 4. That should be our expansion for 4.1.2. Then x minus y squared. Okay. X minus y squared. This is 4.1.3. So remember, if we have square brackets, we just have to expand them, like x minus y, and then x minus y. Then we open this up. So x and x, that's x squared. X and negative y will give us negative xy, because we're looking at this entire bracket. Then negative y multiplied by x is negative xy. Then a negative y multiplied by negative y, we get a positive y squared. So if that is what we have, we need to just collect the like terms, which here are the middle terms. So it's x squared minus 2xy plus y squared. That becomes the expression for that. And then 4.1.4, whenever we have a division, we need to split up everything using the same denominator. So that is 4x cubed divided by 2x minus 6x squared over 2x plus 2 over 2x. And then we apply our laws of exponents and simplify this. So 4 divided by 2 is a 2. 1x cancels 1x on top, we shall be left with just 2x's. Minus 6 divided by 2 is a 3. 1x cancels the other x on top. So x squared is like x times x. Now when you're dividing by x, this cancels that. You're left with 1. If there are 3, it will be x, x, and x over x. So this cancels that. You're left with just 2x's. Then this, to divide by 2, you have a 1. So which means we're just going to have 1 over x. So this should be our answer. Then 4.2, they want us to factorize. Now, factorization is the opposite of expansion. Okay. So now we need to create the brackets so that when you open the brackets, we go back here. So 4.2.1, what do we see that is common? These are 3 terms. We have a 3 everywhere. So take out the 3. I'll have A plus B plus C. And then that is my answer. We cannot add this up because they are not like terms. Then 4.2.2 is x squared minus y squared. 4.2.2 is saying x squared minus y squared. This is a difference of 2 squares, and that must give us x minus y and x plus y. Or you can just write it as x plus y and then x minus y. It doesn't matter which bracket comes first. Then 4.2.3, this is a trinomial. With the trinomial, we focus on this as our product. Okay, and then 8 is our sum. The question is, which 2 numbers do we multiply to give us 15? But if we add those numbers, we get 8. The numbers are just 5 and 3. So what we do, it will be x plus a 3 and then x plus a 5. When we open these 2 brackets, we shall go back there. Remember the rule, you start with a product. Which numbers do we multiply to give us 15? There are a lot of numbers. But then from those numbers, which ones do we add to give us 8? Then we get 3 and 5. Question number 5. All right, 5.1. Write an equation for the following problem. Okay. When I add 24 to the cube of a number, the answer is -3. They told us let the hint be, let the unknown number be x. So if you add 24 plus the cube, which is x to the 3, the answer is -3. So this is the expression they wanted. 5.2, write down the value of x, which will make the statement true. So in our earlier grades, we used to say 2 times a box minus 4 equals to 12. Which number do we put here so that if we multiply this, we get that? The answer is 8, if you're guessing, because 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 4, we get a 12. 5.3.1, solve for x. Okay, so whenever you're solving for x, leave the unknown on one side of the equal signs. Let all the other numbers move to the other side. So I'll put my 5.31 here. So it's going to be 2x is equal to 11 plus a 3, because this negative must move across the equal signs, then becomes a positive. So 2x becomes 14. Then I'll divide both sides by 2 to make x the subject. Answer is 7. Then 5.3.2, this will involve, because it's a quadratic equation, I need to factorize it. Okay. Now, I know that my product is a 2, but my sum is a 3. Which two numbers do I multiply to give me 2? It's basically 2 times 1, or -2 times -1. But if I add these two, I'll get a sum of 3. So which means my factors are going to be x plus 2 and x plus 1 is equal to 0. So either, okay, x plus 2 is a 0, or x plus 1 is a 0. Then I move the 2 that side, my x becomes a -2, my x becomes a -1. So those are the two answers that we expect. Whenever it's a quadratic, we need two answers. If it's just a plain x, it's just one answer. All right, then 5.3.3. I'll jot it this side. So we have x squared plus 4x plus 4. So x squared plus 4x plus 4, we're dividing it by x plus 2. So still this is a quadratic. You need to factorize. Okay, so my product is a 2. No, it's a 4. My sum is a 4. Two numbers I multiply to give me 4 will be 1 times 4 and then 2 times 2. Which pair do I add to give me a positive 4? Remember, it could also be as far as -2, -2, -1, -4. So this pair of 2 and 2, which means it's x plus 2 and then x plus 2. I'm dividing by x plus a 2. This is equal to 0. So this bracket can cancel one bracket out. Then I have x plus 2 is a 0. And then when I take the 2 that side, x becomes a -2. Okay, so that is 5.3.3. Then we move on to question number 6. Question 6, they're telling us that consider the graph below. Okay, consider the graph below. Determine the gradient of AB. So we know that gradient is change in y over change in x. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I call this my x2, y2, x1, y1. Now I do the substitution, it's going to be 8 minus -6. over my x2 is negative 2 minus 4. So that's going to be 14 over negative 6. Okay. And I simplify that, it's going to give me negative 7 over 3. Then hence determine the equation. So for me to get the equation, I can say y minus y1 is equal to m into x minus x1. So y minus, let me use negative 2 and 8. Y minus 8 is equal to negative 7 over 3 into x minus minus 2. Simplifying that, it's going to be negative 7 over 3x. That and that is going to give me negative 14 over 3. When I move this one that side, it's going to be a plus 8. So when I simplify the entire expression, I'll get negative 7 over 3x. That is going to give me plus 10 over 3. It's 10 over 3. So that is the equation that I'm getting. Then 6.2, consider the table below. Complete the table by finding the values of A and B. Okay, so what's going on here? If this is 1, 2, 0, which means the pattern is growing by 2. So from 5, I'll need to subtract 2, which means A is going to be 3. Okay. Then with 5, since I know that 3, there is 4, which is going to be 11, 13, and then I'm going to have 15. So B becomes 15. And then use the tables of values of x and y from table to draw the graph on the grid. Is this the grid? Perfect. So the numbers have been indicated for us. Now when you're drawing, we use what we call the ordered pairs. I'll try to write them down here. So negative 3, negative 1. Then we have negative 1, we say it is with 3. Negative 1 is with 3. Then we have 0 is going with 5. And so on and so forth, okay? Remember, the pattern is linear, so we expect a straight line graph. And with a straight line graph, we only need 3 points. Okay, use the values of x from the table to draw. And now it's fine. Let me write down everything just for everyone's sake. 1 and 7, 2 and 9. And then we have 5 and 15. That's what we got now. Yeah, okay. So when I look at negative 1 and negative 3, so negative 3 for x, negative 1 for y. That is the point of interest. Then we have negative 1 for x and 3 for y. So negative 1 and 3. There we go. Then we have 0 for x and 5 for y. 0 for x is here, 5 for y is there. And then we have 1 for x and then 7 for y. 1 and 7. And then we have 2 and 9. This is 2, that's going to be a 9. And then we have 5 and 15. So 5 is the last point, and then 15 is somewhere here. So if you get your ruler and try to connect these points, you'll end up with a perfect straight line. Okay, so guys, that's where the question stops. So that's where paper 1 stops. Let's meet in paper